Hello and welcome back to another Anchor Up Devlog. Today in this video I'm going to be sharing with you all of the progress that I have made in the past 3 weeks on my indie game, which is a relaxing turn-based puzzle game. So this week, which is week 8, I added in a new location which you might have seen in the thumbnail, some destructible barrels, as well as a new weapon which kind of goes along with that, ship customization, so the customization of sails, plans for how I'm going to improve that system in the future, reworking the enemy weapon AI, and other bits and pieces. First up was creating a new location which I wanted to be like a Chinese Oriental area, so I created these walls and gates all in that style, and also created these Chinese lanterns. This then brings us on to bits and pieces #1, which was this blossom particle effect that I wanted for some of the trees that were in the area. So here is the first level for the new area, which also shows you some of the destructible boxes that were added, where if you shoot them they just get destroyed. These are also systemic, which means that if they're on rapids and things like that, they will actually interact with them the same way that other ships would. I also went for this kind of darker blue background skybox because I thought that complemented the actual pink blossom quite well. I then moved on to level 2, so I've created 2 levels so far for it, and each of them have like an animated aspect to them. So the first one was the blossom, and this one has this clock in the background, which is representative of this cannon that will eventually hit this barrel at the front. So the next weapon that I added was the barrel placing weapon, which is actually split into 2 separate parts, the barrel and the barrel placing one. So this is sort of the first weapon as well that kind of has ammo in the sense that you can only use it once. I've only got a prototype graphic at the minute, so that's definitely going to be replaced. I'm not going to have a logo for that. So an example of where you'd actually use it is here in level 1. For example, if you were replaying it once you've unlocked this weapon, you can put the barrel down there to force the AI to have to go around, and because they're going around you've got a really good line of sight to get the drop on them. So as they come around you can then get them with a cannonball. I also noticed that in the final bit here, some of the text actually doesn't fit in, so this is bits and pieces #2, which is just basically turning the font size down a bit for that. Next up was the ship customization, and this was the customization of the sails. So every 3 levels you'll unlock a new colour for the sail or pattern that you can then equip onto your ship in the ship customization menu in the same way that you'd kind of select a new weapon. But in this case it would just be a couple of checkboxes and you check the colour or pattern that you want on your sails. I then got this prototype kind of working of how it would actually look in game, where you'd be able to click on a colour and it would change the colour of the sails. So then I started working on a more animated sort of material. I'm using lightweight render pipeline, not universal render pipeline, and I was wondering whether or not I should upgrade to the newest version of Unity, but then I realised then I'd have to actually redo all of the effects because lightweight render pipeline doesn't actually upgrade into universal render pipeline, so it's something to think about. So anyway, here is the actual working customization. So you can click on that, and then I added that kind of fancy one just to see what some of the more experimental sails could look like. The sail data is then stored in the save system and is transferred into the main level through the report scene transfer script, which kind of carries some in Unity data over to separate scenes. At the moment, the amount of materials that you've got access to is basically just stored in the amount of levels you've done, so for every 3 levels it'll unlock the next one. However, I do want to make this more dynamic, like the weapon system, where a list of materials is stored. That way I can basically dynamically add them in, so if there's any other ways that I wanted materials to be unlocked, then I could do that. Next up was the new enemy weapon AI, which basically allowed for different weapons to have different ways of detecting the player. So for example, if it was a cannon, then it'd be a raycast. However, if it was a tentacle, it would have to be some calculations to calculate the L shape that it functions in. So here you can see when the enemy has its turn, it will check all of its weapons that it has, and then for each one of those it will do an individual check to see whether the player is actually there. So the base weapon stores the information of what weapon it is, so say if it's a cannon, it will then access the cannon script that's attached to the same object, and that will then have a can use bool on it, and that will return true if the raycast will return true. Now for the tentacle, like I said, it will actually have a different bit of code, so if the base weapon identifies itself as a tentacle, it will go to the tentacle script and basically check that way. So here you can see that's calculating the L shape depending on where it is, and if the player is where the L shape ends, then it will turn true. If you are interested in the game when it comes out, there is a link to wishlist it on Steam in the description below. We've almost hit 50 wishlists, which is absolutely amazing, and thank you to everyone that has done that so far. It really does mean a lot. Thank you very much for watching this week's devlog. If you're interested in keeping up to date with the project, then subscribing is the best way to do that, and would be very much appreciated. You can also follow me on Instagram there. I've only just started, so there's not any posts yet, but I'll be posting some screenshots of the game on there. Thanks again for watching, and see you in the next one.